And everyone, you know what you're doing in the Q&A. Remember, dismiss if you've already answered. All right, let's go. Here we go. Good luck, everyone. So welcome to our grade 8 students and families. We're just going to take a few moments to let everyone log into the webinar. Just so you know, the chat is not open. However, you will be able to ask questions in the Q&A. I just encourage you to wait until we're through most of the presentation, because many of the questions you have will likely be answered during the presentation. So we'll just wait a couple more moments and we'll get started soon. Okay. Hi again, and welcome to all of our grade 8 students and families. We're just waiting for everyone to join the webinar before we get started. We'll be getting started in in a minute or so. Georgia, I think we are good to go. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're good to go as well.
Okay, all right. That's going.
So thank you to everyone for coming out this evening for our top 10 tips and considerations for the transition to high school. Before we begin, I'd like to do our traditional land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the key people who have been involved in planning for tonight's presentation. Our two associate directors, Andrew Gold and Karen Faulkner, and we're pleased to have Karen here this evening with us, and Dr. Renee Rawlings, who is our head of guidance for the TDSB. She also oversees career development. Myself, my name is Georgia Gallagher. I'm a retired TDSB secondary principal, and I'm currently back helping out the board during this time of the pandemic. So it's my pleasure to be here this evening as well. I'd like to ask Karen, a couple of other people I would also like to introduce today. Jason Toe, who is our academic pathways and our secondary math program coordinator. Pat Davies, who comes to us from e-learning and virtual school, as well as Kirsten Johnson, who is our program coordinating for French and international languages. So moving ahead, Renee. We are delighted to have our secondary counseling staff from the following schools in Learning Center 2 and Learning Center 3. They're here to answer questions through the Q&A feature that's on the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those of you who are watching via YouTube Live, please, you can ask questions there. They end up coming back to us, or our assistant Margaret from our parent engagement office is there to help out as well. They will be answering both program specific questions as well as general questions that are standard for the entire board. We couldn't do that without them, and we really appreciate you giving up your evening this evening to help us out. Moving along, I would like to ask Karen Faulkner, our Associate Director, to say a few words. Karen?
Hello, and thank you, Principal Gallagher. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you to Dr. Renee Rollins and to the teams who are here from all of our schools. To our essential staff, Madam Johnson, who's here to answer your questions on French programs, as well as each and every one of the schools that you saw listed. It's a real pleasure to know that 650 families are online tonight for this, our second session on grade 8 to grade 9 transition. Cast your minds back a moment, parents. I used to say this all the time when I did it live in a gym. Cast your minds back to the moment when it was kindergarten and you were trying to decide on the right school for kindergarten. And now here you are with your grade 7 or 8 student wondering about next steps going into high school. And what an important decision it is. And is there a magic trick to the perfect solution? I don't believe so. There are many choices before you. And this is one of the reasons I have loved working for the Toronto District School Board. Choice and fit are as important as how close a school is to you, as how far a school is from you. And in the end, there is no perfect decision. But I know that the variety of programs that are offered by all of these schools and the staff who've taken the time tonight to be here to answer your questions are committed to you making the right choice. And to the students who are in grade 8, oh my, what an exciting time it is for you. Our highest rate of attendance in school this year was grade 9s out of the population of students going to school, because it's so important. And the news is good. Next year will be very different. And I think the choice you make this year will contribute to the success that you will enjoy in the future. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to feel good and be well informed. You will hear about French. Il y a plein de chances à faire de différents programmes en français. And I know Madame Johnson will address that. And I know that Dr. Rollins will ensure that guidance counselors across our schools, all of them on the screen now, will be able to answer all of your questions. Thank you very much on behalf of the Toronto District School Board. I really hope that you get your questions answered and that you feel more informed at the end of this session. And to all those who've participated, a huge thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Karen, for that. So we'll move on with our top 10 tips and considerations for the transition to high school. Before I get started, I just want to remind you that our guidance counselors and program coordinators are available to answer questions in the Q&A for you. So they will be in there diligently answering questions. But I do believe that many of those questions that you have come to this session with will be answered throughout the presentation. So we'll get started with our first tip and consideration, which is homeschool. So many families often ask, what is my homeschool and how can I find out what it is? And so to do that, you'll go to the TDSB website and you'll click on Find Your School, or you'll click on the link that's on the screen right now. So TDSB.on.ca/find-your/school. And when you go there, you will see a site that looks like this. And you are going to select Choose Your School by Address. And you'll type in your street, and the site will inform you of your designated school based on your address. And this is what is known as your home school. As you can see, you can also find your school by school name and by program. And that by program link is probably one that you'll use to look up some of the specialized programs that we have in our school board, which we'll talk about shortly. So optional attendance has been a source of many questions for grade 8 families. So I'll take a moment to review some of the key pieces that I'm sure have already been reviewed by your grade 8 schools, but wouldn't hurt to review once again. I intend to answer the following questions. What specialized programs or alternative schools are there? How does the French immersion and extended French pathway work? What about applying to specialized programs or applying to a regular program at a school other than your home school? And which schools are closed to optional attendance? So on the screen are our specialized programs at the TDSB. So they are organized by arts, athletics, technology, leadership, and IB. And I'm sure many of you have already gone to some of the open houses for some of these schools. And for the ones that are coming up, you'll be attending those shortly. And as I mentioned before, in the Find Your School page, you can search for school by program, and these schools will show up if you search under these particular programs. So each specialized program has its own admission and application process, and each one is a little different. Families should visit the website for details about the admission and application process, but your application process could include an audition, an interview, an exam, a portfolio, a tryout. So there's many different things that could happen when in the application process for a specialized program. Just know that when you are applying to a school under optional attendance, you can apply to 2 specialized programs and 2 regular programs on optional attendance for a total of 4 schools on your optional attendance. And this, of course, would be tracked by the elementary principal at your bricks and mortar school. So if you are a student in virtual elementary school, your optional attendance form will need to go to your bricks and mortar, your home school elementary principal, who will sign and either send it for you or give it to you so you can take it to the school. This year we are accepting scanned, faxed, emailed optional attendance forms, but they do require an elementary school principal signature.
Renee, if I could just interrupt for 1 second. We're having some audio issues with your microphone and you're breaking up. So I wonder if there's any adjustment you need to make before you go forward.
I'm not sure. Should I repeat what I said, or was that, did you
Maybe
get
just
it for the most part?
If you could repeat this last slide, that would be good. Thanks.
Okay. So yeah, apologize for the tech. So each specialized program has their own admission process, and it could include an audition, interview, exam, portfolio, or tryout. So please visit the school website for details about the admission and application process. I just wanted to also let it be known that for optional attendance, you can apply to 2 specialized programs and 2 regular programs for a total of 4 schools on your optional attendance form. These forms need to be signed by your elementary principal. And for those students who are at elementary virtual school, it's your bricks and mortar, your home school, your physical building where you went to elementary school before virtual school. That's the principal who will need to sign your optional attendance form. This year, we are accepting faxed, scanned, and emailed optional attendance forms. So your elementary principal can send it on your behalf, or you can certainly collect it and take it on your own. But please connect with the secondary school about how they hope to receive optional attendance forms. Okay, so in terms of French immersion and extended French, students receive a certificate of bilingual studies of French immersion if they complete 10 credits in French, or a certificate of bilingual studies in extended French upon the completion of 7 credits in French. So those of you who are currently in French immersion or extended French, you may continue with French immersion or extended French at your designated pathway school. The link that's on the screen would show you which high school is your designated pathway French immersion or extended French pathway high school. If you move into the pathway area of a new French immersion or extended French secondary school, you may transfer there and it would not be considered optional attendance. However, if you are interested in attending a French immersion or extended French secondary school outside of the pathway designated school, you would be applying to that particular school under optional attendance. So of course, the next question is, which schools are closed to optional attendance? So on the screen are the French immersion and extended French secondary schools that are closed to optional attendance. This means that you would not be able to apply to them using the optional attendance process. And I'll give you a moment to just take a look at that.
And I just would like to just add, there was a question that came up that would be a common question for everyone about where does one get the optional attendance form. You can pick one up from your grade 8 school, and that would be the best place to start so that you can have a discussion with your principal there or vice principal if you should have any questions about optional attendance.
Yes, and those optional attendance forms are also available online, and I'll leave it to our guidance counselors to perhaps put a link to the optional attendance page and optional attendance form for our guests in the chat. So I'll leave that there. So the next question around optional attendance, besides which schools are closed for French immersion and extended French, are which schools are closed to optional attendance throughout our board. Seeing as this presentation is for Learning Centers 2 and 3, you can see that Earl Hague, William Lyon Mackenzie, Agincourt, Pearson, Native Learning Center East, Mowat, R.H. King, SATEC, Sir Wilfrid Laurier, and Wexford Collegiate School for the Arts are all closed for optional attendance. So we are proud to have so many alternative schools in our board. Alternative schools are safe, highly engaged, smaller school environments. They use non-traditional hands-on approaches to learning. Each school has a distinct identity and focus, such as democratic education, holistic learning, physical art, mindful living, entrepreneurship, social justice, community outreach, and so much more. These schools are ideal for students seeking an alternative to mainstream education and who want to take an active role in their own learning. TDSB alternative schools are open and free to any resident of Toronto. Space in alternative schools is limited, and students can apply to attend on optional attendance. The application process is different for each alternative school. And on your screen, you'll see our secondary alternative schools in the TDSB. So of course, some key dates for optional attendance, and these dates would have been shared with you in your November 4th communication from the board. January 29th is when optional attendance forms are due at the secondary school. As I mentioned before, once you've gotten your elementary principal to sign it, they can send it on your behalf, or you can hand deliver it to the secondary school. Please call the secondary school to see how they receive it. Some of them have drop boxes, mail slots, or you might have to walk into an office and make an appointment to do that. So please call ahead. The first week of February, optional attendance lottery will be held if required for those schools that have limited openings. On February 12th, the deadline is the deadline for parents and guardians of students to be informed of the status of your application. So you'll find out if you got into a school under optional attendance or not. And on February 26th is the deadline for you to select your courses for your secondary school, including the one that you applied to for optional attendance. There was a question in the Q&A that said that you might not find out about your courses until a little later than when you've begun your course selection at your school. But my blueprint gives you the ability to select courses for every high school in the TDSB if you wanted to. So I would encourage you before February 26th to select courses for all the schools you've applied to under optional attendance, plus your home school, so that once you find out, you already have your courses selected. It's also fun to kind of imagine all the courses that you might take at the different schools. And whichever school you end up being pre-registered at is the school where that course selection will turn into potentially your timetable at the school in the following year. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Georgia to talk about grade 9 course selection.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to take us through a number of slides. And essentially, I'm going to be talking about considerations, on that path to deciding your high school, but also the courses that you're going to be selecting. So many of you as families have already had children go through high school. And for some of you, this is your first child. In the past, province offered up both applied level courses and academic level courses in grade 9 for for English, math, science, geography, and French. With the TDSB, we have embarked over the last number of years of leveling the playing field for all of our learners and ensuring that the opportunities post-secondary, are broad and deep for all students. And through work that we've been doing over the last number of years, we're at the point of implementing our academic pathways for grade 9 effective in September. And what this means is that all students will be taking an academic course pathway. And that's in those subjects that I mentioned just now. So students will no longer need to make a selection with regards to applied or academic. All students will be put in the academic pathway. One small little piece to that is the province is also moving in this same direction. And effective September, the course throughout the entire province will no longer be academic math. It will be a new course that's being created, Foundations of Mathematics. So that would be the one exception. They've rewritten that curriculum. And in fact, the ministry will continue to rewrite curriculum as the entire province comes into a de-streamed pathway in the coming years. With academic pathways, the other aspect of course selection still remains intact in terms of other courses that you're going to be choosing. So in terms of some of those courses, you will make a decision whether or not your child is going to take business or technology course or family studies. There will be an arts credit that your child will select from. And most schools, will have options within arts, drama, visual arts, music, etc. Not every school has every option, but typically there are possibilities for you to choose. And then there is the also compulsory grade 9 phys ed program that your child will be in as well. So that would be the 5 academic courses: geography, mathematics, science, French, and I missed one there, English, and then your other 3 subjects that you're going to choose. So we have an application that students use throughout high school, but also they're introduced to in elementary school. And many of your children perhaps have already looked at My Blueprint in grade 7, but it's a formal tool that they will be using in grade 8. And in using this application, it allows them to select the courses for grade 9 through the My Blueprint app. We're going to show you a very short video that is important for you to see as parents, and it will be part of the recording that we're currently doing so that you as a parent can look over it with your child once they're doing that. So Renee, if you could run the video.
Hello, and welcome to the My Blueprint course selection video series. In this video, we are going to show you how a grade 8 student with TDSB will complete their course selections. Start by visiting www.tdsb.on.ca/find-your/school. Select by address. Enter your street name. Note, you will not need to add your full address, simply the street name. Click Search. This will display your destination secondary school. If you are looking to apply for a specialized program, you may also locate your secondary school by searching using the By Program option. Upon determining your destination secondary school, simply visit www.myblueprint.ca/TDSB. Click the green School Account Login button and enter your TDSB credentials to log into your My Blueprint account. Upon login, simply click High School from the left-hand navigation menu. Click Add Plan and select your destination high school from the drop-down menu. Once course selection is open for TDSB students, upon login, students will see the course selection steps appear at the top of their high school grid. Step 1 is to add courses. Click either a subject name or the Add Course button to begin exploring opportunities within that school. Click Add Course to add this to your plan. TDSB students entering grade 9 are expected to select 8 total courses plus 2 alternate courses. Once your student has added all of the courses to their plan, click the blue Review Course Selections button. Step 2 is to officially review the selections. Once the review is complete, select Submit Selections. Upon submission, students are notified of a successful submission to their destination secondary school. Once students have submitted their selections, they may wish to return to the high school plan. Students will notice that the course selection checklist now displays the submission date and time. Students are no longer able to make adjustments to the submitted courses. If changes are needed, students will need to speak to their classroom teacher. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or concerns surrounding My Blueprint, please speak with your student's teacher or email us at support@myblueprint.ca. Hello, and welcome to the My Blueprint course selection.
So as you could see from that video, it's a very straightforward process. And that video, we're currently recording today's session, and that video will be accessible to you through this video, but we also will have it posted on the TDSB website. If you just look under Guidance Beyond 8, you will find all of the relevant information that you could possibly ever need for moving on into grade 9 next year. I also just want to acknowledge a question came in from our YouTube participants asking, what happens if, my name, because I'm living in one address and I'm supposed to go to a certain high school and then I move. And this is a common question that does come up. You need to attend the school of your residential address. If the school, if just say you move, but you still want your child to attend that high school, you would have to apply under optional attendance and be accepted into that school as an optional attendance student. I am going to move on to special education and considerations for those students and parents who either have a formal identification, so whether that identification is a developmental disability, gifted status, physically handicapped, learning disability, those situations, and or are informally receiving special education support. So this would be extra help. They might have an IEP, but don't have a formal identification. And I also want to just talk about just some general supports that are available in grade 9 in terms of academics. So with any student who has a formal IPRC, there is a process called an IPRC review that will take place. And this takes place for any student who has an identification. So I noticed a number of questions came up about gifted. So I'll use a gifted example. In the spring, the review process takes place, and your child will be offered a placement at a gifted high school. And those gifted high school placements are determined by your residential address. Someone asked a question, are there any, opportunities to go to a different gifted program through optional attendance? I believe that we do have a couple of schools that do have additional space in gifted, but typically they're pretty full, and you need to either accept the program of offer, or if that's not what your child would like, you can attend your homeschool through regular program. Or if your child has applied for an alternative school or a specialized program or school, and are accepted through the lottery process or through the application process, then of course they can attend that as well. A question that often comes up is about supporting our developmental disability students in a time of tremendous change. And I want to acknowledge that it is a significant transition because, the students are moving from a very small classroom environment to a much larger high school environment. Typically, spaces come open at different schools depending on the graduation rate of the students who are currently in the high school DD programs. So parents who are on this evening's call who are wondering, well, how do I know what's going to be offered for my child? Part of it has to do with the area of the city, so what learning center you currently live in, but also where spaces come open at the various schools. It is absolutely possible for you to connect with those schools and to better understand the programs that are offered. As a high school principal with a DD program, I can assure you, parents, that the transition for our DD students is significant, and we take it very, very seriously at the high school level and want to ensure that this is a very smooth transition and that we continue to support in the way that you've received those supports in the grade 8 school. So those reviews take place in the spring as well, and those offer replacements come up. So I really encourage you in particular at a time of transition from grade 8 to grade 9 that you attend those IPRC reviews and that you ask all the questions and make the comments that you need to make during that process so that you can ensure the best fit for your child come September. Again, because spaces depend on the graduation rate at the various schools, it may not be possible for a particular school. But what I would encourage you to do is to have those open conversations through the IPRC process, through your current school principal. For any of our non-IPRC students, so these are students who informally are receiving additional support through an IEP, the transition to high school also can be a little bit scary. And one of the things that I would really encourage our parents to do is to have a conversation, start a conversation now with your children, whether they're in special education or not in special education, to kind of tease out some of these things that we see surface and start that conversation early and have those conversations often so that come September, you're prepared and your child is prepared for moving on into grade 9. In terms of the academic supports at the grade 9 level, every school has a student success team, and they these are teachers who work with guidance and administration to help the students who may be struggling. And this is just, an informal way of accessing supports. We also have formal supports in the way of learning strategies courses, and these can be for students who are IPRC'd or those who have an informal IEP. And essentially these are courses that provide instruction on how to study and how to learn and how to be organized, and to give extra support for subject-specific pieces that students may need some additional help with. Every school has a special education department, and depending on the size of the school, it will determine the number of special education students. Most schools have a resource room that students in grade 9, they may need a quiet place to write an assessment or evaluation of some sort, and those things are available. So typically any of the students and their families who have a special education designation, whether it's formal or informal, will be invited to participate in information session about special education by the leadership of that department, so that you can better understand how to support your child through the transition and once they are actually in high school. Renee, if we can move to the next slide. Wanted to talk about what to expect in high school, both for the students who are on tonight's call as well as for you as a parent. So for you as students, I think one of the big things that you're going to notice is that transition from grade 8 to grade 9, you're going from being, the oldest kids in the school and the ones with most experience to coming into the bigger high school, where there are bigger kids, and you're also the youngest again, kind of like when you were in primary grades or junior grades. And so this is going to be a bit of an adjustment for you. It can be a little bit scary for you stepping through the doors of the school and trying to find, your classrooms, because it's not necessarily a familiar environment, trying to figure out how to use a padlock and putting it on your locker, and keeping your courses organized, because things are a little bit different than in elementary school. You have a lot more freedom as a student in high school, but you also have a lot more responsibility. And it's important that you always work towards finding that balance as a student between that freedom and that responsibility, and making sure that as a student, you're making a positive contribution to your school environment, that you're doing the things that are expected of you as a student, but also that you try out your wings as a young adult and figure out, the kind of path you're going to follow eventually 4 years down the road when you're graduating and moving on to your post-secondary pursuits. For you as parents, I think one of the biggest things that you're going to notice is that your kids are actually going to be growing up, and they certainly are going to probably clam up on you a bit more than they currently are. You often will have some of the best conversations with your child if you're driving them or walking them to school back and forth. But it's not uncommon for midway through grade 9 for the answer to a question, "How was your day?" to be "Fine." And that's it. We as educators really encourage you to keep asking those questions of your kids and to continue to persist in being involved in their educational life. They don't want you there. They don't want you to know their business. They don't want you to talk to their teachers. They don't want you to come into the school anymore. They certainly don't want you to be part of school council, especially not as the chair. But we as educators say, keep involved. When you're in partnership with the school, it resolves things before anything can even come up. So sort through, what kind of, change is coming forth and how you're going to navigate it with your child. And again, I really encourage you to start those conversations sooner than later. Now is the time for the planning for transitions, and that not only takes place in the classroom in grade 8 and going to open houses in the high schools, but it also takes place, at the dinner table or when you're having family time and talking about those things. And part of what I would encourage for you as parents and guardians is to ask some, pointed questions of your child. What are they excited about and what are they worried about, so that you can help guide that process in the coming months. Renee, can you switch to the next slide? For our grade 8 students who are here and or for our parents who are on the call tonight, we wanted to show you what to expect in terms of timetables. So down at the bottom of the screen is what our current model is this year because of the pandemic. And every high school is in a quadmester environment. We don't know what's going to happen next year. We have no idea. And so, we could very well continue with a quad model as we navigate through, the country becoming healthy again. So in that quad model, students take 2 courses only per quadmester. And so the school year is broken up into 4. And by the time the end of the school year comes around, they have taken their 8 courses, and they're moving on into grade 10. Some of our schools are on a semestered system. So once again, when we get past the pandemic, those schools will revert back to their semester format. And in that situation, students take 4 courses at a time. So 4 during semester 1 and a different 4 semester 2. And then finally, we have a number of schools that continue, and this is less prevalent, but we do still have some non-semestered schools. And students would be taking 8 courses over the course of the year. And on one day, they would take 4 classes, and then the next day, they would take a different 4 classes. And they would repeat that pattern throughout the school year, and at the end, achieve their 8 courses. You can move ahead, Renee. Couple of things that I wanted to comment on. We don't know what the landscape is going to be in terms of the pandemic come September. There's some really positive news about vaccines that were presented on the news today. And that makes me hopeful that we will get back into stride in terms of, normal, goings on at schools. But we don't know that yet. In the background, the TDSB is sorting through with the ministry, just like every board in the province, what will happen for September. And I suspect that decision will be made, I would guess in and around the March break time, so that planning can take place for what's going to happen in September. One of the things around the pandemic that, is just so, pressing is the social emotional needs of our students right now. It has really taken a toll on students for their routines to be upended in the way that they have. For your kids when they were in grade 7 last year to essentially be finished at the March break, and now in the tumultuous year that we have right now. And the kids hear the news and they know about the pandemic, and there's these underlying worries that are going on. And it's important for you as parents that to know that they've got that going on already, and then we're adding on top of that this additional stress of moving on into high school. Some of your kids may be worried about having missed some work in grade 7 and missed some work in grade 8, and or having to be in a virtual environment for all sorts of reasons, whether it's a family member who is immunocompromised, or because themselves they are, and they're having to be away from their social connections Uh, for some of our students, they are still back in school, but they're scared every day they're going to school. And some of you right now likely are homeschooling your kids as well, and taking care of that on your own. And this needs to be part of the conversations and part of your considerations as you help your kids navigate their next steps going forward. And how is that transition from, maybe elementary virtual school into a bricks and mortar high school? What is that going to look like for them? And what are the things that are on their mind before going in? I want to reassure you, though, first and foremost, we know that the last year and a half and what is going to be a bit longer has been, coming into grade 9, we recognize what the kids have been through. And all the schools will be working to identify any gaps that exist and to help the kids fill in those gaps. So I don't want you to think, we're just going to, brush our hands and say, too bad, sink or swim. That isn't going to be the case. We're going to work to support your kids to recover from the pandemic and the disruption of their education so that they can get back on track. And kids are really resilient once things are back in stride and things are, back to, normal in our world. They too will, get themselves back in stride. And again, we're in partnership with you to help and to ensure that your kids meet their potential. Renee, can we move to the next slide? Couple of questions that come up all the time is what happens if, I accept at one school, so I've decided to exercise optional attendance and I decided I'm going, to school X rather than school Y. So I'm choosing to go to Cedarbrae when my home school is Sir Oliver Mowat in Scarborough. Number one, if you're accepting on optional attendance, the expectation is that you do attend that school and that becomes your home school. There may be still space back at your home school, and that would have to be a discussion between you as a family and the high school to see if they have space for your child. And that's why it's so important in this time of decision making that you take into account all considerations. And those considerations have to do with travel. They have to do with their social group, because that really does play a big role. Kids often think, oh, I'll be fine going to school X, even though all my friends are going to school Y. But in fact, they will experience some adjustment in grade 9. And so it's important that you, as parent guardian, have that discussion with your child, because it may be that they're going to have to continue at that school they accepted for the duration of the year and then apply back to their home program afterward, after grade 9. So it's not quite as easy as it may seem. We staff all of our schools based on where kids are telling us they are going to attend. And so it's important that they're sure about where they want to go. One of the things that I always encourage is, for kids to participate in the virtual open houses, when we had, some of you went to open houses last year when they were on, and they have a sense of where they can see themselves. That's really, really important. It's the most important thing. And they need to have a voice in that decision. Now, having said that, I do want to say that in the TDSB, we have every school is awesome, and I've worked at I think 20 different schools in my career, and it's difficult to say what my favorite is, just because there's something about every school that makes it so special. And so it's important that you don't get caught up in the optional attendance frenzy or the specialized program frenzy, because often the best school is the one that is across the street from your home. And you need to give due consideration to that as well. And I would encourage you to take a look at the bigger picture, and not just, finding schools on a list and seeing which ones are, supposedly the top schools. All of our schools have a pathway to post-secondary for college, for university, for apprenticeship and workplace. And any school will get you to those locations. So you needn't worry about that part of it, but you do need to worry about where is your child going to find the best fit. And Renee, we can move to the next slide. And I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Georgia. So families would have received this timeline and checklist in the November 4th communication that you got via email, but we'll go over it together today. So between November and December, you should have attended or will attend your elementary school virtual transition event, and that might look a little different from school to school. They might also have shared some information with you electronically as well. Between November and January, grade 8 families are encouraged to attend secondary school open houses. Some have already occurred. Some are still taking place between now and January, and many have pre-recorded sessions or a recording of their open house available on our open house website. So it's a great opportunity to learn about the school. Many have incorporated their students and staff into those sessions so that you can see what the school is about. And although you aren't able to go there in person, just get an idea of what the school is like. Between November and January, some specialized programs have additional entrance requirements. Of course, we encourage you to visit the school's website or contact the school for specific deadlines. Some of those deadlines have already passed, and so hopefully you were able to submit whatever was needed for those particular deadlines that have passed. On January 11th, grade 8 course selection opens. And on January 29th, optional attendance forms are due at the secondary schools. February 12th is the deadline for parents and guardians to find out about the status of your optional attendance application. And February 26th is the deadline for the grade 8 course selection. As we mentioned before, there is a little bit of a gap between when we open up course selection for grade 8 students and when you might have submitted your optional attendance form and when you'll find out if you got into the school or schools that you've applied to under optional attendance. So as I mentioned before, in my blueprint, please make sure that you select courses for your home school. So if you remember from our very first slide, that's the school that's designated based on your address. So find my school by address. And select courses for any of the schools that you applied to under optional attendance so that when that February 26th day comes, you have in fact selected courses for the school that turns into your high school for next year. So who do you contact if you have any questions? So all of your child's teachers, vice principals, secondary guidance counselors, and specialized program coordinators are here to support your child through this exciting transition. If you are in virtual elementary school, please ask your grade 8 teacher, and if they don't have the answer, they will connect with the administration so that they do get the answer for you. For those of you who have any questions around specialized schools or programs, please connect with the high school that houses that specialized program, and they'll be able to answer your questions specifically. If you have questions about my blueprint or course selection, connect with your grade 8 school. If you have questions about special education offers of placement, also connect with your grade 8 school. If you have questions about the special education or additional academic supports that are available in the high schools that you're interested in, please contact the high school and they'll be able to share with you all of the supports that they have available for your student going into grade 9. So in terms of some web resources, you were introduced to our Beyond Date website in the beginning of November in that communication that you received. And I'd like to point you to this site once again. The link is on the screen. And if you go to the TDSB site and you went to high school, going to high school beyond 8, there's a series of web pages that will assist you in the grade 8 to 9 transition. The second link on the screen is our how-to video for course selection that we shared with you earlier. It is housed in the Beyond 8 website under the sample timetables. And you should find everything you need in this Beyond 8 site with regards to the grade 8 to 9 transition. Once course selection opens up, we will also have a course selection page on our Beyond 8 website, which will give you more details about the course selection process, step-by-step instructions, and the video, of course.
And Renee, if I could I know we have a couple of moments left, and some of our YouTube participants again have asked some questions that I'd just like to answer so that they can hear them. So one of the questions is whether or not how many schools can you apply to outside of the TDSB? You can apply for however many. That hasn't anything to do with us, but within the TDSB, you have the 4-school limit. So you can do whatever you need to do. In terms of my blueprint, I just want to, because a number of questions have come up again about this. So your child has a login, username and password currently with TDSB, and they'll use that with my blueprint as well, that same login. And that is how they will access courses. And so your child has that already. You can speak with them. They can get into the application. And you don't, like, if you're in a TDSB school right now, whether it's a virtual school or whether it's through your bricks and mortar where you're actually in the building, they would have access to that, and they can access it from home. The question came up is, how do you apply to a high school now that there's COVID? And again, Dr. Rawlings earlier in the presentation mentioned that the process will be through my blueprint, that you make your course selections. You can go in at any time and play around with this and determine, different scenarios for yourself. But it's not open for you to do a submission until the new year. So you can do that, right now, and we encourage you to do that. Take advantage of the application and see what pathways it takes you down for different schools. So if you're just applying, if you're just applying for your homeschool, that's how you would take place. If you're applying through optional attendance for a different school other than your home school, again, you need to get that optional attendance form to your grade 8 principal to sign, and then get it to the school that you're applying to by those deadlines that have been established. And I think I'm just going to talk about one other question that has come up a couple of times, and it has to do with the timelines for IPRC reviews and offers of placement, and where do they fit in terms of this other process of applying to high school. So if you're offered a placement after, so if your school's IPRC reviews are not until April, and that's when you're offered your placement at a particular school, you have the choice at that point to accept that placement as a special education identified student. So it can take place after, and we can't get all of the IPRC reviews done too quickly. Like the review process is meant to take place in the latter part of the school year. So you could have accepted, at your home school, but you've been offered a placement, in a gifted program elsewhere. You can accept that placement after the fact. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. I know that we do have some Q&As that have yet to be answered. And I commend our guidance staff from our secondary schools, because you've done a stellar job answering tons of questions this evening. So we will be taking down those questions, and we'll try to get out a frequently asked questions information sheet as part of what we post to the website as well. So Dr. Rawlings, back to you.
Thank you. And thanks for addressing all of those questions. And yes, I just want to echo that thank you to our secondary counselors who diligently been typing away, answering all our questions in the Q&A. Thank you so much for that. And thank you to all of you for staying with us during these top 10 tips and considerations for the transition to high school. In addition to our secondary counselors, I want to thank our program coordinators who joined us to also answer some questions, and thank Beth for her support today, especially over in the YouTube live session. Thank you, Georgia, as always. So happy to work and present with you. To the grade 8 families and grade 8 students, we're so excited for you as you begin planning for high school. This is such an exciting time, and sometimes you feel anxiety and stress and forget that, oh my goodness, I'm going to be in high school next year. So let's not forget that this is an awesome time. It's meant to be fun. When you go into My Blueprint, play around, select courses at different high schools that you're interested in, because that is a fun thing to do. Good luck. Enjoy this transition as you move from grade 8 to 9. I know I'm not really young, but I remember being in grade 8 and being excited about what high school I was going to go to, all the new people that I was going to meet, and really starting my future. So I really encourage everyone to enjoy this time. This is also exciting for parents. You get to see your students select courses and they start, paving out their path to post-secondary. And so please enjoy this time. As we mentioned before, the recording will be available on the guidance site of the TDSB website. So please, it's tdsb.on.ca/guidance, and the recording will be up next week. And until then, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for spending your evening with us. We hope you have a great night. Good night to everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you. And thank you all, secondary counselors, for joining us. Have a great evening.
Renee, if I can just say, we've got some audio issues with your microphone again that came in, that
okay.
in just in the last couple of slides. So I just wanted to make you aware. I'm not sure what, I don't know if it's an internet connection or what it is.
Yeah, maybe I'll take off my VPN for tomorrow and just use my internet. That might be.
My VPN's on, so I'm just not sure, but I don't normally have that issue meeting with you, so I just thought I would flag it to you. Margaret, if you can hear us, thank you so much for all your help in the background. We couldn't do it without you.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Glad to help.
Oh, awesome. So we'll, Margaret, see you tomorrow again?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Okay.
Same time.
Yeah.
Different link tomorrow, Margaret. Okay. Good night, everyone else. We're going to close it off and end the meeting. And Margaret, I think you can end it for everyone.
I can.
Thank you, interpreters.
Okay, you could do that.
Yes, thank you to the interpreters.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Okay.